Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Kelly Dewar. I'm Senior Outreach Specialist at Maddie's Fund. We are having a very exciting webcast today, and very timely. We're going to hear from Lindsay Landecker, the Director of Community Partnerships for Jacksonville Humane Society. The Humane Society won our Get 'em Home Challenge with their long stay task force about 4 years ago. And since then, they have been perfecting the logistics. And so we're really excited to be able to have this for you. And Lindsay, welcome.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, everyone. I am super excited to be here, and I'm super honored to be asked by Maddie's to present on the behalf of the Jacksonville Humane Society, and we will just get right to it. So today we're going to be talking about finding homes for long stay pets. And this is me. I'm Lindsay. I'm the Director of Community Partnerships. Oh, look, I already found a mistake. I'm not the Director of Community Programs. I'm the Director of Community Partnerships at the Jacksonville Humane Society. This is my dog, Dudley. He is the real star of the show, but that job title is a fancy way of saying I manage grants, communications, public relations, marketing, and digital fundraising, a little bit of everything here at the Jacksonville Humane Society. Prior to working here, I've been here about 7 years. I used to be a volunteer, and I absolutely love what I do. I love the Jacksonville Humane Society, and the Long Stay Task Force is one of my favorite things that I get to participate in here. So I am thrilled to bring this to you all today. Just to give you a peek at JHS, I think it's important anytime we're talking to each other, just to give you kind of a glance at where I'm coming from. So when I say JHS or we or our, that way you kind of know. I recognize that this program is not going to look the same at your shelter, and that's great. That's wonderful. Please take it, personalize it, steal it, make it your own. But I just want to give you a look at what we're talking about here at JHS. So our annual intake is around 8,200. I'm pretty sure we're going to surpass that this year, but dogs and cats only. We take in stray, owner surrenders, and transfers. We transfer weekly from Animal Care and Protective Services, our municipal friends. We have a budget at about $5.5 million and about 75 full-time and part-time staff. We are located in Jacksonville, Florida. If you've never been to the balmy Sunshine State, please come on down. We've got mosquitoes and gators galore. One quirk about our city is that we are literally the largest city in the continental United States. I don't know if there's an award for it, but I'm pretty sure we take the cake. Our city limits are ginormous. And so it's a large municipality. It's a large city to serve with just 2 major animal welfare organizations. And of course, our friends at First Coast No More Homeless Pets. That's our affordable high volume spay neuter. And at JHS, we do a little bit of everything. We offer, of course, pet adoptions, but we have a thriving pet retention program, a really comprehensive humane ed program. We have workforce developments for veterans, a volunteer program, a foster program, a mobile vet clinic, and we are home to Florida Leaders in Life Saving. Florida's program focused on uniting Florida shelters to increase life saving statewide. So that's JHS in a nutshell. I just wanted to share that so you kind of know where we're coming from. I know everybody's coming from someplace different and it all looks a little different. So like I said, remember that the information that we share may need to be scaled, and it may not fit exactly like that in your organization, but I promise you it can fit somewhere. So at JHS, here's a glance at our length of stay over time. The way that we measure length of stay, we measure it from the day they come into our custody. So it will include foster time, and it will include a stray hold period for dogs, which is 7 days. But this kind of gives you a glance at 19, 20, and 21. Of course, 2020, it's always kind of a random outlier, right? We like to pretend that year didn't happen. But we have seen a pretty significant decrease in dogs from 13 days in 2019, 15 days in 2020, down to 10 in 21. And we're keeping that. Last time I checked in 22, we're averaging around 11. Cats, you can see a pretty significant decrease as well. And I'll kind of talk about how we got there for that. 27 days in 19 down to 18 days. That includes foster time for kittens. So we're pretty proud of that. And now our average is around 13. It kind of goes back and forth depending on what month it is, but between 12 and 13 days here at JHS. So when we talk about length of stay, that's what we've been looking at. And we did implement the long stay task force for the Maddie's Challenge in 2018. Thank you, Maddie's. Hashtag thanks to Maddie's for making us the Get 'em Home Challenge winner. Most creative overall. As you can see, I'm still riding the high of that win in 2018. We need some wins to hang on to nowadays, don't we, kids? But the long stay task force came out of that. When Maddie's put the challenge out, we thought to ourselves, okay, we really want to come up with something. And of course, we were thinking of like creative adoption events and fun marketing, but we really wanted to come up with something that was sustainable and something that would have impact kind of across the board. So when we talk about the whole shelter approach, we didn't just want to, look at our marketing. We didn't just want to look at adoptions. We wanted to look at everything we were doing and really focusing on how can we get that length of stay down. When I started here in 2015, I remember when we had a dog hit the 1 year mark and we did, a news story about it. And I'm just thrilled now that we're not seeing that anymore. And so once again, thanks, Maddie's. And I love this program and I'm excited to be here. And why do I love this program so much? Because I'm a nerd. In my personal life, I'm not super organized. Like I did clean this up for you guys. Like it was a little messy, but in my professional life for other people, I like to be organized. And in animal sheltering, particularly right now, if you're in Florida, if you're in the Southeast, or I mean, I know it's across the country, everybody's panicked, right? We're all kind of like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And the great thing about this is that it is a proactive approach. So you are training yourself, training your staff, training your organization to decrease the length of stay, increase the rate of outcomes, and collecting meaningful data. You can unite your staff in a common goal, promote best practices, get your community on board, and most importantly, stop acting like your hair is on fire. Okay. Instead of just always reacting to things, having this system in place, it's going to take a little bit of effort to get you there. But once you have it in place, you will see length of stay start to decrease. And wouldn't that just be a gift to the animals in your shelter? And wouldn't that be a gift to the staff? And one major takeaway that we have is that we wanted to know, we were doing all of these things when we started the long stay task force. We kind of threw out every single tool we had in our tool belt to impact length of stay. Is it a Facebook post? Which, if you know me, I'm always saying like the world's problems are not solved by a Facebook post. Mark Zuckerberg was not that was not his intention when he came up with Facebook. It was not, how can I help dogs and cats find homes? But it is a useful tool. I will grant him that. But is it social media? Is it a special promotion? Is it a special sign on their kennel? What can we do? We kind of wanted to think of everything we could do, but we started asking ourselves, well, what's working? Like we knew it was working, but we didn't know what it was. So we did a survey of 50 adopters who adopted long stay pets. And we wanted to know, what was it that made you pick this pet? Like, how did you pick this wonderful pet that she's been with us for 60 days? Why her? And what we found was that the majority of them picked the pet just from visiting our shelter. It really wasn't anything special that brought them in. They just decided either to visit the shelter or they came by with the intention to adopt and they picked this particular pet. You can see the next biggest factor was social media and our website, so our online marketing presence. And then about 10% came from foster. And that's really an important piece because that did inform a major shift at our organization in terms of how we were looking primarily at dogs in foster care. So that was one big takeaway from us, was that, wow, it's really the shelter, people coming here has a huge impact. And are we taking the steps to make sure that that visit to the shelter is what it needs to be? And what we learned, having this program in place from, the end of 18 all the way now through 22 was what really influences length of stay. You might think, and we're guilty of this too, we, think that it might be breed or size, age, appearance, whether it's a dog or a cat, or once again, those Facebook posts. But no, it's not. It's actually things like our adoption policies. the daily enrichment we're providing our animals, ensuring that everyone's getting that proper veterinary care, our inclusive marketing, customer service, huge for adoptions, our volunteer participation, having a foster care program with outcome goals and community engagement. Those big picture things were having a much bigger impact. So when we were shifting those big picture things, and frankly, things we can control, I may not be able to control the size or the age of the animal, but I can control the customer service they're receiving. Those big picture ideas really had the biggest impact because once again, where were the people coming from or how are the pets getting adopted from visiting the shelter? So we had to make sure that we were set up for success to set the animals up for success as well. And of course, people are adopting in our building. So these were the questions that we asked ourselves moving forward. Isn't this just the most precious picture, y'all? I mean, look at that. This woman came in, with the intention of adopting a small dog. And instead she adopted this 9-year-old little brown rhinoceros, this slow moving, adorable creature. I love that picture so much. But I'm easily distracted. So these were the questions that we were asking ourselves when we were talking about big picture impacts is, are the adopters having a positive experience? Are we open when they need us to be? Are we affordable? Can they find us online? If they're typing in dog adoption, are we popping up? When they come to visit us, because we know that's what works, can they see all of the pets that are available to them? Are we engaging everyone in our community or are we just preaching to the choir? Are the animals receiving the best possible care they can while they're waiting so that they are happy, they are healthy when people are walking through our building? Are adopters sending us their friends and family? Are they referring us when someone says, oh my gosh, your cat's amazing, how do I get one just like it? Are they saying the Jacksonville Humane Society? And are they coming back for those second pets? Are they volunteering, fostering, donating? These are things that we really wanted to make sure that the answer to all of these questions was absolutely, because it is in the best interest of our animal and our animals. We knew this would increase life saving. So ask yourself these questions. I encourage you to ask yourself, let's get together with your staff, with your volunteers and say, are these things that we can make happen? And I will tell you that these are the principles that really helped guide us during the pandemic. We didn't close. We knew people were coming to us. They wanted to help and they wanted to adopt pets and we wanted to be open because we had the pets. We have the pets, we need the people. So last thing, some things to consider when you're answering those questions are you practicing those open adoptions where barriers like lengthy applications, referrals, approvals, high prices, and other requirements, are they removed and replaced with non-judgmental adoption counseling? I really encourage you to audit your adoption policies. We have a program here at the Jacksonville Humane Society called Florida Leaders in Life Saving. And that is an opportunity for other shelters to come here and get some hands-on training. And one thing we find is that a lot of people, and this is fine, open adoptions may have looked one way when they made the change in 2016, but now in 2022, maybe it's been a while. So take a look and see, do I still have some things that are putting barriers in place for the people who want to adopt? And then are you providing daily enrichment to your animals, both in and out of the kennels, to reduce fear, stress, anxiety, and frustration in pets as well as people? Our animals look just like animals in y'all shelters. We've got big old bully-headed cuties and lots of black cats with missing limbs. There's nothing particularly special. Well, I take that back. There's something wonderful and special about all the pets here in Jacksonville, but it's that they're all a little quirky. So providing them that daily enrichment, we make sure that we do playgroup every single day for our dogs. And the cats here are spoiled and are given, I think, so much enrichment. I would like to send one of our volunteers home to my cats while I'm here at work. But it helps the animals so much so that when people come, they're seeing happy, healthy animals and wanting to take them home. And our staff are trained to provide excellent customer service. We put the customer first. We're not Amazon Prime yet. I don't know, but you can't push a button and have your perfect rescue dog show up on your porch 2 days later. And so people have to come to the building, and providing excellent customer service is really really important factor in life saving. And then also making sure that you are open and accessible to the public. So just some things to consider from a long stay standpoint. So now we get down to the dirty. You're like, Lindsay, why'd I come to this webinar? And I'm going to give you some tips. I'm going to give you 5 steps on how you can build your own long stay task force. So a long stay task force is a very strategic assembly of staff members who represent different shelter departments and evaluate the best practices for pets with a longer length of stay, or also who may be at risk to be overlooked. They also gather and analyze data to inform decisions about organizational procedure and protocol. And I add the overlooked part because one thing we discovered during the Maddie's Challenge is that the pets we thought were long stay were actually not. You know, everybody has staff favorites, and you have like a dog come in with an underbite or like a 27-pound cat, and everybody's drooling all over it and talking about it. And you're talking and talking, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, they've been here forever. But in reality, you've just noticed them since they first came in, and they've maybe only been here 2-3 weeks, but we've got a pretty nondescript animal who may have been with us 4 or 5 weeks that slipped through the cracks. So there's overlooked on behalf of the staff, but then also overlooked on behalf of the public. We have a great rate of people wanting to adopt. The weirdos in our population, you know, our tripods, one eye, no teeth. We have a great community here, but they may also be overlooked. So pets with a longer length of stay are those who are overlooked, but it is a very strategic assembly of staff members. Now, for all intents and purposes, long stay pets at the Jacksonville Humane Society, we classify that as pets who have been in shelter care for 30 or more days. We went back and forth and we were like, is it, you know, available for adoption for this amount of days, or is it from day one? We stuck with day one just because the pet can't make the distinction between whether or not they've been available for adoption or whether or not they've, you know, been receiving medical care for a week in the back. So we just said from the day they get here, that's when we want to be counting down, because if they've been in, you know, receiving medical care for an extra week, it's still a week to them. That's where we're going to start. And you can, if you are like us and you are a shelter that includes, that transfers in animals from other shelters, you can include time in other shelters if you decide you want to. We originally did, but we've stopped doing that because what we found was that sometimes just the change of scenery was enough for dogs or cats who were long stays at the city shelter. So the change of scenery and moving here was enough to get them adopted pretty quickly. But that's something you can decide. So how do you build your long stay task force? The first thing is you want everyone to assemble. You want to gather a staff member from each team and pick a day and time for each month and set it for the year. Why so many people? So we have members from the adoptions team, our shelter med managers, and these are, when I say members, it's primarily managers, but we do sometimes have a frontline staff member join us. So we'll have adoptions, shelter med, our humane ed manager, our volunteer manager, our communications person, me, our director of ops, and then also someone from our animal care and enrichment team. Why so many people? And I'll hit on that as we go along, but really what you want to do is take the whole shelter approach, because there are nuances to each individual animal that one person knows and someone else may not know, or it hasn't trickled down yet. And of course, what's the one thing everybody says that they would improve on when they give feedback for their place of employment? It is communication, right? Oh, you could improve communication. So having everyone in the room is really beneficial because it is great for communication. And from there, you want to create a tracker. Oh, hold on. I'm going to go back. I forgot something. Okay. Pick a day and time and set it for the year. Our director of operations, she sets it for the entire year, and don't let yourself skip it unless you have no long stay pets. You have no long stay pets, you get to skip your meeting. But once you've assembled your team, you want to create some sort of tracking device and decide how you're going to monitor the pets as they hit their 30 days. We use a shared spreadsheet. The adoptions team is responsible for keeping it up to date, and everyone is required to look at it 2 days prior to the meeting. That way everybody comes into the meeting with an understanding of the pets, and we're not kind of sitting there asking ourselves, what is this one? What does that one do? This is, this cat was not with us for a long stay, but I just love this picture because we just put this online and it went bananas and he was adopted the next day. So good job, Chubbo Kitty. This is a look at the beginning of our spreadsheet. So you can see here, we break it up. We have one sheet for dogs, one sheet for cats. I've got their ID number, their name, their age, the intake date, either the adoption date or today's date, their length of stay, and then what stage they're in. So I checked this the other day. Usually the adopted ones we will move off of there, but I put them on there because I wanted you to see that we had some great adoptions. And of course, our intake type, and that's actually very meaningful, is how they came to you, because that'll help you identify some patterns. And you can see, okay, these ones have been coming to us, so why are they staying with us for longer than other ones? So we break ours up into dogs and cats, and we just put that baseline information on there. It is very helpful if under the name you can see that those are hyperlinked. That goes to their individual Shelter Love profile, so you can just easily click on those for more information. We use Shelter Love. And the one thing I'll say is that remember to look for pets who are not at 30 days, but might need special attention. For example, those long stay transfers that we talked about from other shelters, pets who might have medical needs, and hospice pets. So I will give you the story of the beautiful, precious Chives, the little lady in this picture, super cute with her pink collar. Chives actually had a cancer diagnosis, and when our medical team decided that she could be a hospice adoption, we didn't waste any time. Because we had the long stay task force, we put her on the list ASAP, decided that she needed a special Facebook post. Oh, Facebook, well, you did it again, Facebook, I'm so proud of you. But we actually put her all over social media. We got the word out as fast as possible, and her amazing mom came in and adopted her the very next day. Chives, I think her new name is Lola or Luna or something. She has an Instagram account, and she is thriving. And we've had 2 more hospice pets come right after her that were both adopted. They didn't stay here longer than 7 days, any of them. So definitely keep an eye out for those pets who may need special attention. And then strategic steps. Once you've built your tracker, you want to think about everything you can do to decrease the length of stays. Now, remember, these are the minute things that you can do for individual animals, because we talked about the big picture stuff. So now I want you to think about the little things that are going to impact each individual animal. Some of those things might include a photo, your website bio. Do they need a bath? Do I need to move them to a different kennel? Do we need to change their name? Do we have good notes on them? Do they need to go on maybe a dog day out or on a staycation, which I'll tell you about in a little bit? You want to add those to your tracker with a plan to implement. And then we use a guideline of 30, 60, 90 days, kind of when we hit those benchmarks. And that helps us formulate this plan. And we are going to send the slides out after this, and this is being recorded. So don't worry about trying to scribble all of these down if, like me, you are a crazy note taker. But you can see here, this is what the continuation of our spreadsheet looks like. And it is the 30-day plan. So by 30 days, the pet should have a quality picture and a written bio on the website. We will consider waiving or sponsoring their fee, or we might look at, do they need a name change? You can see this little kitty here was named Topeka, and we changed it in the meeting. We were all talking, and I was like, well, I don't know it's missing an eye. And then someone said, Nick Fury, which I guess is like a Marvel Universe thing. I don't know anything about that. Everybody else in the room, I'm sorry, you're a nerd, because they all went crazy for that. And then the cat was adopted 2 days later. So good job, nerds. I'm just kidding. But yeah, just we look at those things at 30 days. So 30 days, just some simple things you can do. And we make sure that they have a nice clean kennel card. At 60 days, we update that kennel card. We might add some additional signage to their kennels. We'll do a special social post. Maybe they need a grooming or a vet check. Sometimes it's just, I remember there was this one dog that we were all talking about, and they were saying, well, he's amazing, but he hates being in the cone. And because we had the medical manager in the room, she said, why is he still in the cone? He should have been out of the cone like 2 days ago. So we were able to catch that. So sometimes it's just, the quality of having everyone in the room and having a voice at the table really can help. We do a news media spotlight. We have a lot of opportunities with businesses where we have Pet of the Month, where we share special things on our website. They're sponsored. They might go on a staycation, a dog day out, a sleepover. We'll also create a tip for success sheet for them and give them a lightning pass, which I'll talk about in just a smidge. And then at 90 days, if I have grant funding, I'll do a boosted or a paid ad for them. We will sometimes do trade with a digital marketing company who will do a digital billboard for us, or any other special ideas we can think of. So you can see they're up at the top in the red, yellow, green. And this isn't a plan that we stick to like, no, it hasn't been 60 days. We can't make them Pet of the Month. And we don't necessarily do that. We just want to make sure that as they're hitting these benchmarks, we're exploring all of these options. And this is really important because one, you don't want to lose track of all the tools you have in your tool belt. And two, what's really nice is that you can assign them to people and then follow up. So once you meet, you want to review each pet on the list. You want to evaluate the different factors that are going on with the pet. So is it, maybe there's a medical challenge or a behavior challenge, and you want to talk about which methods you think are going to be best for overcoming that and finding an adopter. And then from all of your tools, you want to assign those tasks and follow up. And I will say it's important that you make sure you support each other. I think a great example of that is we had a dog, I want to say her name was Frappuccino, and she had some behavior challenges inside of her kennel. She didn't show so great. Oh no, I'm sorry. Her name was Coco. Inside her kennel, she didn't show so great. She was a bit intimidating. But once you got her out, she was just a complete love bug. And so we wanted to make a TikTok of her. So we worked with our animal care and enrichment team, and we actually did a whole TikTok of her going to Starbucks and getting her own special drink. And then she was adopted just a couple days later. So definitely support each other with that backup. And then keep an eye on pets who are almost at 30 days. You don't want somebody to be at 29 days and then miss them and, have another 30 days go by before your next meeting. I will also say in the meeting, make sure you have a monitor, somebody who's not letting the conversation kind of go off track. We learned that the hard way. And then use your data. So a couple things that I want to talk about, some examples that I can share from you from how we learned from ourselves and how we really looked at what we were doing with a critical eye. So earlier in the beginning of this series, I talked about our length of stay being lower for cats. And that's because we looked at the long stay and we said, all of these cats who are long stay cats came to us as strays. And they all had behavior challenges. And we were not doing return to field at that point for stray cats. We had kind of just moved into our new building, and we don't have animal control officers to do return to field. So somehow along the way that had trickled out of our practices. And so we found a way to creatively implement that and started returning stray cats. We practice now, we call it return to home with our community, but started practicing return to field for stray cats. And that had a really big impact on their length of stay. Our foster program for dogs. Now, we were doing, adoption ambassadors, sending dogs with a long length of stay into homes, asking the foster to market them and find them a new home. And that wasn't really working for us. They may have the best of intentions, but they don't generally have the large network that we have here at JHS when it comes to marketing. And what we found was that we were spending so much time discussing these dogs who weren't even in our building. And it was not, we were spending a lot of time chasing down foster parents, asking for pictures, asking for videos, and then trying to play middleman when people would see the marketing that we would put out and try to reach the foster parent. It just was not the best use of our time. So we came up with something else, thanks to Humanity's apprenticeship, and we do short-term fostering, and it's called Shelter Staycation. It is available for cats too, but primarily we use it for dogs. And it's just a 2-week break. So the dog or the cat will go home with the foster, generally on a Monday or on a weekday, and they'll stay with them. They'll come back on the weekends because the weekends are the busiest time for adoption. And And we also have a lot of adoption specials on the weekend. So they will come back for the weekend. And then if they're not adopted, they'll go back out for another 5 days. And what this does is allows us to get a ton of really great notes about what the pet is like at home. And it just gives the pet time to decompress. Look at this picture. I mean, is there a more happy dog? This is Sycamore, was with us for about 40 days. No idea why. Dog was a total gentleman, just a good old fashioned mutt. And his foster mom took him home and he fell in love with this little boy and they were just best buddies. And so Sycamore, he came back and he was adopted about 4 or 5 days after his staycation. But I think it's because he just had time to go get a break. And I think fosters really appreciate it because you're giving them a defined amount of time. One of the questions we always get asked is, how long do I have to foster? And it's much easier to get buy-in from your community members if you say 10 days total, as opposed to, oh, until the pet gets a home. Now, I acknowledge, obviously, that's going to be different with underage animals or medical animals, but for length of stay, it really has worked for us. We really do see pets. We get so much more information that we can share with adopters, and they're just a lot more relaxed when they come back, and so they're adopted much quicker. One other thing that we have developed is our lightning pass. This also came from data. We found that we were looking at if people were signing in to see a specific animal. So at JHS, when you're looking to adopt, you can come on in. We're open 7 days a week, and you can look around and then come and let us know the animals you're interested in meeting, and we'll get a staff member for you. Sometimes we have a wait, and we use a software system called Waitwhile, which is similar to what's used in restaurants. And so we can see which pets people are signing in to meet. And we can also see, okay, has no one signed in to meet this pet whatsoever? Now, the feedback we were getting from our customers is that the wait time was lengthy, which one is good. It tells us that we've got a lot of people coming in who want to adopt. That's awesome. But two, not so good because no one really likes to wait. So we did some things to adjust that wait time, but something else that we did was give people an incentive to meet our long stay pets. So when we make them a lightning pass pet, we'll put the lightning symbol on their kennel card, and we have signs everywhere that explain that this is how you get to cut the line. If you've ever been to a theme park, you know that if you pay extra money, you can buy the special pass and you can skip to the front of the line and you don't have to wait. It's sort of the same concept, except we don't charge anything. So if you are going to sign in and you want to meet a puppy, just a heads up, it might be a 30-minute wait. But if you would like to meet this charming 5-year-old black 50-pound dog that I have, or this beautiful tabby cat, then hey, that's a lightning pass. I can get somebody for you right away. So that has worked really well. And then one other thing that we found from all meeting together and sharing the data was that our adoption counselors were a little overwhelmed with all of the behavior notes that they had to share with some of our long stay pets. So they're doing the adoption counseling, and you guys know the person is normally like so excited that they're not really absorbing anything you're saying to them. And it became difficult because we train our staff to be very meticulous note takers and to document a lot of things, which is great. But when you're doing the adoption counseling and you're trying to dig through all that stuff, it can be a little hard. So instead, we developed what we call tips for success. And it's just a little one-sheeter that we send home. That came from feedback from our staff. So all of these things came from us looking with a critical eye at what we were doing and asking ourselves, how can we make it better so that we can decrease length of stay and increase outcomes? So just a peek at some of those things. And we will share at the end. I do have links to this information that we can share in the chat at the end, but this is what our lightning pass looks like. So you can see that's on the kennel. And then this is tips for success. I'll tell you a fun story about Cosito. This little beagly looking boy was actually kind of a nervous Nelly when new people would touch him. This was, I believe, his 4th adoption. He did not like when strangers go to pet him. So we kept sharing that with adopters, or when we would send him on a sleepover, we would share that information and we would say, Just make sure you give him time to warm up to you before you try to pet him. The adopters, bless their hearts, would put him in the car. And of course, what's the first thing you do when you adopt a dog and you put him in the car? You want to reach over and pet him and be like, you're going home, buddy. And then Cosito was like, yes, I am. And you taste delicious. And so we had to work out some stuff for Cosito, but he was our brainchild for this because people kept forgetting it. So we walked out to the car with his mom. We had already gone over the tips for success, but we handed it to her before she got behind the wheel. And she said, oh, I'm going to put this on my fridge at home so that I have it for myself and that my pet sitter can see it. And so this has worked really well. It's a great way to synthesize all that adoption for your harder to place kiddos. So good job, Cosito. And he is doing wonderful in his home. This is some strategic kennel signage that we use to help out. I told you guys earlier about the dog Coco, who was struggling in her kennel. We put this QR code on her kennel, and then people could just scan it and watch her really fun TikTok. I believe that was one of her doing zoomies, and then we also shared the Frappuccino one. But that's just some interactive signage that would help present the pet in a better light than what they were seeing inside the kennel. And then this is some precious artwork from the kids who come to our kids camps. And we would love to know what you're doing also. If you want to contact me afterwards, I would love to see what you all are doing at your shelter to draw the adopters in. Because once again, our data showed that people were adopting just because they visited the shelter. So they're here. How can I get them to stand in front of this kennel a little bit longer and lock eyes with this long stay pet and fall in love? And one thing I will also share with you is that we work pretty closely at JHS to make sure that we have a pretty clear lane to drive in when it comes to adoption counseling and when it comes to marketing. So marketing is all about getting your people in the door. That's why I always say a Facebook post is not going to solve all of our problems. Because marketing, I just want to get people to come in. So I have to share a variety of things from social media, and our website needs to make sure that it's focused on getting people to come in. And then once they come in, the adoption counseling is where we set the family up for success. So this is a dog named Bud. He had quite a few medical issues, and this was his profile on the website. We saved his medical information for the adoption, and his family was totally fine with it, didn't faze them whatsoever, even though he had some medical things. So it's just sometimes that's why I really put a lot of trust in my coworkers here at JHS. I know that they're the ones who can share that information one-on-one with the people, probably better than I can share it in the written word. And I can get people in the door. And then worst case scenario, the person comes in and it's not the pet for them because somebody saw Bud and then they heard about the medical information and they were like, oh no, that's okay. That's too much for me to deal with. Well, I got like 48 other dogs who are waiting to meet you. Let's find you one. And so that's really how our adoption team gets to shine in that capacity. And then I do also recommend finding ways to include your volunteers. There are so many ways you can use them to help promote some of your long stay pets, everything from taking pictures to giving baths. We've assigned dogs to volunteers so that we can learn like what is their favorite enrichment activity so that when they get adopted, we can share that with the adopters so that the dog is even more happy in the home, or, so that they buy the wand toys and get, make sure that the cat burns up all their energy. What is it we can really do? So please include your volunteers. And then also keep going. Don't give up. It can find time to find your rhythm. It definitely did for us, but you want to make changes as you go and decide what works best for you. And I would say it's definitely a team effort. I always enjoy going to the long stay meetings because I get to see my coworkers that I don't always get to see every single day. I'm emailing them, no doubt, but I don't always get to see them. We get to work collaboratively. We get to exchange ideas, and we get to make decisions that are based on evidence and not so much kind of what everyone's saying. And then once again, our hair's not on fire because we're being as proactive as possible. Right now in our shelter and in our city shelter, we are full. So we're doing some free adoptions to try to relieve that. But one thing that's nice is that we're full, but our animals haven't been here for months and months and months because proactively we've been working on that. So we are excited for that. And then I believe we're going to go ahead and go to questions, Kelly, if you want to help, but that is my last slide. You are welcome to call me or email me anytime if you have questions. I am more than happy to answer any questions that you have or help you with your process. But yay!
Thank you so much, Lindsay. We have several people who their organizations stopped letting visitors walk through the kennels during COVID. Are you finding it makes a huge difference? Is this hurting their adoptions?
So we have been open and we'll stay open. I can say this in our mind, we focus very heavily on making sure that our pets are getting enrichment because I know that there's dialogue about it stressing animals out. What we see is that the enrichment that the pets get, so the dogs we faithfully do our play groups every day, even in the rain, and making sure our cats are very well cared for, getting that individual attention from our volunteers makes a world of difference. On weekdays, we open at 12 and play group is in the morning. And by 12, the cats have had everything cleaned and interaction from our volunteers. So while people, when they come in at 12 or when they come in at 10 on the weekends, the animals have had a lot of enrichment up to that point. And so they're pretty happy and calm and settled down in their kennels. And they're not as stressed, fearful, anxious, or nervous as they might be otherwise. So I would say enrichment is the key to helping pets. I personally would let people in the kennels because once again, the data shows they're adopting when they're coming to you and they're going to want to see that pet for adoption. If I were to go to a mattress store and I was going to pick out a mattress, I'm going to want to lay down on it. I'm not going to want to look at a picture of a mattress and say, okay, this is the one for me. I'm going to want to lay down on the mattress. I'm going to want to drive the car. So I think we kind of have to take notes from retailers. I know we don't like to think of ourselves in that way, but we have to look at what they do to be successful and be successful in the same light.
Awesome. The question, how is the foster kitten length of stay so low? We've taken kittens that aren't available till 2 pounds, so it often takes nearly 2 months. Are you making them available for adoption earlier or with a less age or weight than their organization?
We do 2 pounds as well. And we don't have a limit on age restriction, so we'll take them in at a day if that's what's in the best interest of the kitten. That is a question, unfortunately, I don't want to answer because mental math is not really my thing. But I can promise you, I've got kittens right now in 6 weeks. I think that is the average for cats and kittens. So I would assume that it has something to do with the average, and kittens are pretty readily, we encourage our fosters to find homes for them. Our fosters also can adopt them. And we have 4 area stores now, Petco and PetSmarts, where we also place kittens for adoption. So they don't last long. Once they come back here, they're adopted pretty quickly. So even though they may have a long length of stay, usually their adoption is super quick.
The success sheets, are they specific to each animal or generic information?
They're specific to each animal, but we have a template because some of the behaviors that we'll see are the same. So that way we're not reinventing the wheel every time. So Cositos said something about, touching him around the head. So that's language that we would use if another dog or cat had the same thing, but we specialize each sheet to the specific pet. And our Humane education manager, actually, she works on those because she loves graphic design stuff. So.
Awesome. A couple of questions about the Lightning Pass. Are people using it to get around, to get a dog seen quicker? And are they only allowed to see that specific animal when they skip the line?
When they sign in, we'll let them sign in for up to 3 animals, but it's a case-by-case basis. If it's someone that, really is spending the time trying to find the match for them, we're going to work with that person. If they are skipping the line just to interact with that one dog and they're skipping, 4 people who are signed in for the same poodle, we're kind of okay with that. Because that dog, no maybe no one's asked to see that dog or cat and this is their shot. So I would say we haven't had any negative, or we've been doing it for about 3 months now. We haven't really had any negative interactions or customer complaints. So I would say give it a try. It's okay if that dog meets somebody and, doesn't get adopted. Put the faith in your adoption counselors to kind of take the ball from there.
Awesome. And how many long length of stay animals do you typically have at one time?
It depends. So right now is summertime. So we have, I want to say maybe we've got 20-ish dogs, and we do have some cats because we transferred in cats from a municipal shelter. We transferred in quite a lot of feline leukemia cats. So we do actually have one of our adoption rooms is our feline leukemia adoption room. So they're putting a little crank on our length of stay for kitties right now. But I can tell you, we were able to cancel the meeting 1 month because we didn't have any long stay pets this January. We do a short-term holiday foster called Silent Night over Christmas, and it always does extremely well. We nearly empty the shelter. And sometimes the volunteers are like, there's no dogs to walk. And we're like, that's a good thing. So I would say it depends on the time of year. But those screenshots that I took were from a day or two ago because I wanted them to be accurate. So.
Awesome. We have a couple of people asking about the spreadsheet. Who updates it, and is it updated in real time? How does it work if a pet's been there for 30 days, but the task force isn't for a couple of weeks?
So our adoptions manager updates it. I'm pretty sure because she's pretty busy. So I think she updates it maybe every other week. And a couple of us have access. So if we need to go in and add something, we can. But traditionally, I'm trying to think. Yeah, so that's why it's good to keep an eye on pets who maybe like right before their meeting, they're at 24, 25 days, so that you know that you're maybe not going to go another 30 days without them. But it's up to you. We have our adoptions manager do it, but you could assign one person a dog, one person to cats. You could come up with a system that works best for you. You could have a volunteer do it. I'm sure a volunteer would love that job.
Awesome. Do you have any tips for increasing the visibility of dogs in foster?
So we struggled with that. And that's why we went to Shelter Staycation, because that way the dogs were still getting exposure. And when they came back, we got so many wonderful notes. We would be able to answer all those questions that people want to know, like, are they good with cats? Are they good with dogs? So that's why we went to the Staycation. So I would say if you want to increase exposure, have them in your building when you're doing big promotion events, if you can. So if you're participating in, Bissell, PetSmart National Adoption, Best Friends, any of those coming up this July, have those pets back in your building if you can. I think that's where you're going to reach the most people who come to your building with the intention to adopt. And I would also say, if you can, make sure they're on your website.
One that several people have posed, how do you get buy-in from staff who don't seem interested in participating in the long stay task force?
Well, you just offer them candy, of course. That is an excellent question. So I think that I would tap into that part of the person who came to work at the shelter because they love animals. If that is your mission, to help animals, then odds are your best employees are the ones who are there. They love animals. They love people. They want to be there. So I would tap into that part of them and help them see that it's for the benefit of the animals if we can decrease their length of stay. I would explain how it works, and feel free to share our data with them and show them that we've had great success with it. And that this is something, and hey, at the end of the day, it's something that could potentially make their job easier if they're not facing, so many pets and they just feel completely overwhelmed by length of stay. This is something that we can actively do to decrease it. So,
how do you go about finding new fosters?
We make it very easy for people to find it on our website. We spend a lot of time in the months of April and May doing purposeful marketing to find fosters. Everything from the marquee on our building outside on the road says we need fosters, to a pop-up on our website, being all over the news. And I definitely would say, I know Casey Pet Project does a great job about always including foster in everything they talk about. So shout out to them for that. But one thing we do for Shelter Staycation is we'll put on the dog's or the cat's profile, I'm eligible for a Shelter Staycation, ask about that. So that way people, when they're doing adoption counseling or when they come to the front desk or they call or email us, we can kind of talk to them about that and get them sold on the program. Oh, you muted yourself, Kelly. Sorry. There you go. No worries.
Did you work through any pitfalls rolling out Dog's Day Out?
Did we include pit bulls? So we have all of our dogs are labeled mixed breed. That's okay.
Did you work through any pitfalls?
Oh, pitfalls. I thought you said pit bulls. I was like, oh, of course. Pitfalls, Dog Day Out. No, I think we actually, one really cool thing is that we were able to find a corporate sponsor for it, which is really great. So that's helped us as well. But no, we kind of select the dogs that can go for Dog Day Out. We make sure that people can see it on the website, and we have a report card for people to fill when they come back, but we haven't had anything really go wrong on a Dog Day Out. The community really embraced it. One thing about our community, we're really close to the university and we've got military here as well. So it's a great way for them to take a dog out, spend time with it, because they may not be able to own one at this point. So.
Can you explain a little more about fostering without outcome goals? Like what that means?
What that means, yes. So the outcome goal, so that's our Shelter Staycation. So that's us saying, yes, we want our dogs to go to foster care, but they're going to come back on the weekends because that's when we're busy. And we're going to put a 2-week cap on this and doing that short-term fostering, because the goal of that really was to gather information and for the pet to decompress in order for us to find them the home. Relying on the foster parent just wasn't really working for us. And we were having a lot of pets just kind of go into foster indefinitely. And then playing that dance of, are you going to adopt them? Yes or no? What's going on? So we do that. Outcome goal is adoption. And so that's why we do the Shelter Staycation and make it like a 2-week max. Now they can go on multiple Shelter Staycations. Like if they Shelter Staycation and then they're here for another month and we send them out, that we'll do that. That's fine. But we want to make sure that they're coming back when the adopters are here.
What type of customer service training do you do? And are there specific trainings that you recommend?
You're welcome to email me. I have a training that you can share with your staff, but we practice non-judgmental conversations, and we practice showing compassion. And it's kind of about just preparing our staff and training them so that people are having an excellent experience when they come here to JHS. Once again, if you email me, I'm happy to share that with you, but we have like a certain like type 1, 2, 3 response that we go over. And it's just basically about making sure that everyone is treated with compassion here at JHS. No matter why they're here, we're here to help them. And also I would say hiring the right person for the job. We hire a lot of people who have worked in the restaurant industry, worked at places with reputation for excellent customer service, and also people who love people. It's a people job. A dog's not going to walk in the front door and say, I want to adopt myself. A cat's not going to come in and say, excuse me, could I get spayed? I'm sick of having kittens. So you really have to rely on the people. So while I have plenty of things, t-shirts and mugs that say, you know, only me and my cats today, or those types of things, those are great, but it's not a wonderful attitude to have at work. And so we put a pretty intentional focus on making sure that we are hiring people who enjoy being around people and who thrive in that environment.
When you analyze customer needs, what changes did you make to your opening times?
We looked at when adoptions were happening, and we actually made them, it was a while ago, but we wanted to make sure we were open 7 days a week and that we were open later. So we're open weekdays, 12 to 7 p.m. and we're open weekends, 10 to 5. And I will say shout out to our municipal shelter here in Jacksonville, Animal Care and Protective Services. They were able to convince the city to let them also be open at different times and an extra day, because they know that that's when adoptions are happening too. So kudos to them for that. But I would just look at when your adoptions are happening, and that will tell you when people are coming.
How big is your core of volunteers?
We have about 200 active volunteers.
Okay. On average, how many times do you find your dogs are going out during the week and then back on the weekends? Do you see any issues with deterioration from the going back and forth?
We do not. We see the opposite. They are generally in much better, they're in much better spirits. And like I said, we have so much great information that it makes us finding homes for them easier, because when they come back, we'll update their website bio, update their kennel card. We'll add attributes like lived with cats, lived with dogs. I can think of one dog in particular, Maya. She just would not eat in the shelter. And I don't get to spend a lot of hands-on time with the dogs, but I had taken her to the news station and she wouldn't eat her treats. And I sat with her in her kennel. I hope my boss isn't watching this. So I sat with her in her kennel for like 30 minutes and I was like, please, baby, just eat something. And then I came back up to my desk and I did 30 more minutes of work. But when she went to a foster home, she started eating, so that's an example of, if we hadn't have said, if we had worried about what that would do to her, afterwards, I don't know what may have happened. So I would say we see the opposite. They like decompression. I don't like to liken shelters to jails, but I mean, if I was in a jail type setting and someone say you can get out for a week, but you still have to come back, I'm getting out for a week. That's all right.
Really?
I'll take a furlough.
Absolutely. Who is responsible for your bio writing? Is it staff or volunteers or both?
We have a communications intern who works with us from our local university, and our communications assistant helps her write those bios and keep them up to date. We don't do a bio for every pet on the website, but every adult pet gets one.
Are all your dog kennels available for viewing from the public? How do you handle the dogs that are not comfortable with strangers approaching their kennel?
So that's a great question. We do have strategic signage for some of them. We have like friendly signs that say things like, please don't put your fingers through, I might think it's a cookie, things like that. But once again, make sure that your dogs are getting as much enrichment as possible so that they are mentally stimulated. So even if you're not doing play groups, we also do food puzzles. We make sure that our volunteers, we have wonderful volunteers who take them for walks, and just doing things in kennel enrichment, doing what you can, offering positive reading so that the dogs are getting as much enrichment so that you can lower that threshold for the dog, so that when the person is coming by and they might be frustrated, it's going to be maybe a little bit less than what you've seen. So I would say strategic signage and lots of enrichment.
Thank you. We're at time. However, we have a ton of open questions. So we're going to go just a few minutes over.
That's fine.
Thanks. So when looking at your data pertaining to average length of stay in totality, do you factor in underage animals or animals under behavior modification?
So yes, it includes underage animals. We do not get a ton of puppies, but we'll take in about 3,000 kittens per year. We don't have a lot of dogs who are doing behavior modification because we like for everyone to be available if they can be available. So we won't hold a dog or cat back under behavior modification. We will work on things with them, but they will still be available. And the reason for that is because we are not likely to train that behavior out of the animal. And also what happens is that when they go home, those behaviors may also disappear completely in the home. It might just be that they're reacting to the shelter. So if we don't have them available, the odds of them, we're kind of just adding to their frustration levels of being in the shelter, which is probably causing some of the behavior. So by making them readily available, that puts us in a great position to continue working with the adopter and providing support for them when they do go home, rather than holding them in a different part of the shelter and hoping that they'll, come around or respond to the training. Now, I understand everybody's, different, and sometimes, every case is a little bit different, but we try to make everybody available to the public so that they can go home.
What do you recommend for dogs and cats that do really poorly in shelter environments? We find that animals in foster have a much longer length of stay, but they're also miserable if they come into the shelter. So any recommendations for those animals?
I would try the short-term fostering if you can. And then if you're having a really big adoption event, I would have the animals there for that. And maybe invite the foster parent to stay if they want to. Because I think having them there when the people are coming, when you're driving a ton of foot traffic to your shelter or to a PetSmart store or Petco store, I would have them available. And maybe if they're not going to do great in the shelter, could the foster parent hang out outside with the dog on a leash, or things like that? I would try those things if you can. And try the short-term fostering. Like I said, if they're really deteriorating in the shelter setting, then if they come back for a weekend, it's 48 hours. Versus, them being there continuously. So that might help. And one of those, we do short-term fostering. Like I said, I don't have the stats on shelter staycation, but when we do our holiday fostering, or anytime we do sometimes we have to do it for hurricanes, we see about a 40% adoption rate. Pretty close to half the animals that leave don't come back. So maybe you just need to find the right foster home.
Have you ever had your foster dogs visit the shelter for a day, like daycare for exposure?
Yeah, I think maybe not just a day, but that's a great idea. Yeah, I would look at when your traffic is busiest and definitely get them there.
How many kennels do you leave open every weekend to house the staycation dogs when they come back from the weekend showings? Do you adjust this based on the number of fosters that you have?
That is an excellent question that I cannot answer for you, but I can ask my ACE team and find out. I would guess it's a couple, and that we may also juggle and see if maybe if we know we're having a really big adoption event one weekend, we may try to juggle things there. We don't have a ton of dogs go out on staycation at once, but they actually do. They don't work with we don't have a foster coordinator. We have a vet tech that oversees our foster program, but that's primarily for kittens. The short-term fostering falls under our ACE team. ACE stands for Animal Care and Enrichment. They're the ones who coordinate that. And so it's best for them because then they know which kennels are open. So they're the ones who work with the foster parents, and they're also, they work on behavior with the animals. So that's why that team does that. We find that to be a good niche. Another reason to have everybody in the room for your long stay meeting.
So we still have some questions, but I'm just going to do one more,
Okay.
And then we'll move to Maddie's Pet Forum with others. Do you have an active fast tracking system as well? And can you comment on how fast tracking affects your long stay pets?
Fast tracking, I'm not sure what's being asked. I'm sorry.
I am not 100% sure either.
Do we fast track them to the long stay list if they meet certain parameters?
That's what I would think.
Lightning passes, maybe. Yeah. I would say if they've got a medical condition, like when we got our FELV cats, we definitely put them on the list from the get-go. Hospice pets, we put on the list. If it's a specific transfer from another shelter that we know has been a challenge, they'll go on the list. So if that's what you're asking, yes. Awesome. Easily adoptable animals are fast tracked to the adoption floor. So our strays are on the adoption floor. They can be pre-adopted. So they can be seen by the public. They go to play group. So they are out there for people to see.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. And Lindsay, thank you so much for your presentation and for answering our questions. This was wonderful and super helpful.
My pleasure.
And very timely. Thank you. After the webcast, join us on Maddie's Pet Forum to continue the discussion and exchange ideas. Thank you all so much and good luck. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.